Human accepted an alien slave as payment only to discover. She was a former chief military engineer. We begin in a place that smells like melted metal and desperation. Flickering neon signs in alien dialects buzz overhead, reflecting off puddles of spilled synth rum and coolant. Beneath those lights, Riker stands black jacket, zipped up eyes unreadable, his hand resting casually on the grip of a pulse sidearm. He's not here to make friends. He's here to buy something illegal, something alive, a quantum biocore, banned tech, rumored to run on thought itself. The seller is an amphibian thing called Zek, all cartilage and glinting teeth. It talks too fast and sweats like a punctured coolant line. Core's real human. It croaks, pushing a hexagonal crate across a scuffed metal table. But I throw in a bonus, a Solari. That gets Riker's attention. Zek taps on a glass panel. Inside, slumped and silent, is a humanoid woman, violet-skinned, white-haired, delicate-looking, but with a strange calm in her posture. Her wrists are cuffed, but she's upright alert. Her silver eyes meet Riker's without flinching. "I don't deal with people," Riker says flatly. "Then call it a rescue, or a trade-up." Riker almost walks away. Almost. But something in the woman's stare, a kind of quiet defiance, reminds him of old things. Forgotten things. He names his price, transfers the credits, and leaves with the core and the woman. "You're free once we're off this station," he tells her on the walk to the docking bay. "I know," she says, her voice soft but strangely confident. "I chose you." That's when Riker pauses. Chose, he glances at her. She's already ahead of him, walking toward his ship like she's been there before. His ship, the Warden Edge, a half-organic military cast-off that runs more on instinct than programming. And as the boarding ramp rises behind them, the ship purrs. Literally purrs. Its soft hum changes pitch the moment she steps on board. "You named it?" she asks, running a hand along the wall like greeting a friend. "Yeah. Why, it likes you, but it loves me. You won't be able to stop being curious now, will you? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here." Inside the ship, Riker tries to ignore the strange harmony between his new passenger and the Warden Edge. But every system she touches stabilizes. The lights brighten. The air filters hum smoother. The ship starts talking back, faster, clearer, almost emotionally. He finds her in the engine room later, one hand on the core panel, eyes closed. "Are you syncing with my ship?" he asks. "Your ship was grown from bioneural tissue. You don't just fly it. You commune with it, if you know how." "And you do," she opens her eyes. "My name is Tasha. I was the chief neural biologist for Project Genesis." That makes Riker flinch. Project Genesis is the kind of ghost that haunts military backchannels. A cross-species initiative banned after an incident involving a telepathic virus and a melted moon. Tasha steps back. "I'm not the monster they warned you about." "Then what are you?" "A survivor, and maybe your new co-pilot." Riker doesn't know what bothers him more, that she's not scared of him, or that part of him already trusts her. Later that night, he finds her reading through his system logs, head-tilted lips, mouthing silent calculations. "You're not scared, I'll throw you out the airlock." "Are you scared, I'll throw you out?" She fires back, not looking up. He snorts. She smiles. The ship thrums like it's laughing too. Riker never liked passengers. They asked too many questions, touched things they didn't understand, and usually died when things got serious. But Tasha, she didn't ask. She fixed. She understood the ship's systems like they were parts of a body, her body. She touched the walls like she was soothing a frightened animal, murmuring frequencies instead of commands. "You didn't just work on Project Genesis," Riker said as they floated through the drift sector, dodging mining debris from a collapsed station. "You designed this kind of ship." "Not exactly," she said, brushing her fingers along a fiber optic bundle like it was a harp string. "I designed what came before. The neural interface. This," she gestured around the Warden Edge, "is someone's weaponized knockoff. Still runs better than anything I've had since the war. Because it responds to emotion, not logic." Riker almost laughed. "Ships don't have feelings." Tasha turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Neither do most humans. but it doesn't stop you from flying them like ghosts are chasing you. Riker fell silent. He didn't talk about the war, the fact that he was one of those ghosts, that he'd lost a family not in battle but to a government willing to rewrite DNA like a drunk scribbling over old maps. So why now, he asked. Why escape dressed as a slave? She sat down in the co-pilot seat, legs tucked under her, like she'd always been there. Because the last lab I worked in, they weren't just studying genetics. They were controlling them. Entire species were being redesigned to remove empathy, to make obedience heritable. And you had a problem with that. Tasha's smile was bitter. Turns out I was the last one on the team who did. She handed him a small data crystal. It shimmered faintly, a bioactive storage node. Encrypted backup, she said. All the evidence I could salvage. Genetic rewrite templates, neural cage algorithms, command pheromone designs. That's a death warrant. Or leverage. If I can get it to the Orion Void Station, I can re-upload it to the Union Archive mirrors. Expose them all. Riker stared at the chip. His gut told him to chuck it into a star, but his heart, that half-ruined, half-stubborn thing, reminded him that sometimes doing the right thing wasn't clean or safe. We'll need fuel shielding upgrades and a stealth node, he muttered. Tasha blinked. You're helping me. Don't get excited. I'm helping us. You lit up my ship like a solar flare. I want to see what else you can do. She grinned and something unspoken passed between them. Something electric. They stopped at a supply station carved into a passing asteroid belt. Tasha wore a flight suit modified to suit her Solari physique, slim, subtle, slightly iridescent. Heads turned. Riker hated it. Inside the shop, while Riker haggled over a deuterium exchange rate, Tasha wandered toward a bank of cryopods. She stared at them, some filled, some humming with latent power. I was born in one of these, she said softly. Riker didn't look at her. Planned birth. Designed, she corrected. My genome was part of the Solari Empathy Matrix, a project meant to amplify connection between species. We were supposed to understand others, love better, sync faster. He glanced over. Sounds like a romantic ideal cooked up by someone who'd never been shot at. That's why they shut us down. Our gifts made us resistant to command protocols. I once refused to inject a test subject. My supervisor ordered my termination. And here I thought humans had the monopoly on dystopia. So, she looked at him, eyes reflecting the blue glow of cryolights. Do you think I'm unnatural? Riker stepped closer. His hand brushed her elbow. It wasn't romantic, just grounding. I think you're the first person who's made this ship feel alive again. That's all I need to know. Outside, alarms began to wail, docking beacons scrambling. Someone had traced them. Riker grabbed her hand. We're leaving! The Warden Edge roared to life beneath their feet. As they launched into the void with 3 shadow cruisers on their tail, Riker turned to Tasha. You said you synced with my ship. I did. Then sync with me. We're going to need all the connections we can get. She nodded, and the lights around them pulsed to her heartbeat. The sync began with a whisper, not a word. Not a thought, but a sensation, like warm breath against the inside of the skull. Riker's hands gripped the controls, but his awareness stretched, pulling taut like wires, wrapping around another consciousness. Tasha sat beside him, eyes closed, fingertips, lightly grazing a neural patch she'd affixed to the co-pilot's console. You'll feel some pressure, she murmured. It's the ship trying to accommodate dual pilots. What happens if it fails? You pass out. I bleed from the ears. And the ship forgets how to decelerate. Comforting. The Warden Edge groaned around them, not in protest but anticipation. The old ship had been built with a dormant biointerface, one that Riker never unlocked. Tasha, however, had practically sung it open. The 3 pursuer ships had now closed within sensor range, tagging the edge with low-frequency locks designed to trip a quantum snare. We need to shed their lock signatures, Riker muttered. Tasha's fingers twitched against the console. A bloom of bioluminescence spread through the bridge's organic mesh. I can fold our signature, not quite cloaking, more like emotional camouflage. Riker squinted. We're hiding our vibe. She smiled, not breaking concentration. Exactly. Ships trained to detect aggression won't notice something they can't feel. As the wave of quantum interference passed them, the first cruiser overshot, swerving wildly, recalibrating. You just confused a warship, Riker said. I'm a confusing woman. Their neural link solidified in that moment, an impression more than a thought. Her pulse was now part of his awareness. He felt her steadiness, her precision. She in turn felt his instincts honed in old war zones, how he thought in angles and exits. Next cruiser is smarter, he warned. Then we will be smarter still. Together, they executed a barrel drift, a maneuver that should have blacked out Riker, but didn't. He realized it was Tasha counterbalancing his stress reflexes, through the link calming his adrenal system as they spiraled. You're literally inside my head, he said through gritted teeth. Not a bad view. The second cruiser tried a snare net. Tasha spiked the edge's neural output, mimicking a system overload. The net reeled back. The ship flickered, jittered, and vanished from their view, cloaking by emotional feedback loop. You invented this stuff? Riker asked, adrenaline singing. I wrote the first protocols. The others just weaponized it. They burst out of the asteroid cloud into open space clean, stars untouched black. But the third ship, the smart one, had anticipated the path and lay directly ahead. This one won't be fooled, Riker said. We'll have to fight. Tasha's voice didn't waver. Then we fuse. What? She reached over, pressed her palm to the interface on his side. His breath hitched. You said sync. I say merge. Biologically. Briefly. The connection snapped into place. Not just thoughts, not just feelings. Biofeedback. Riker's heart rate doubled, hers slowed. His eyesight sharpened, hers filtered out HUD noise. The ship vibrated, suddenly reading them both as one entity. On the sensors, their signature blurred, split, then reformed as something new. The third cruiser opened fire. Riker responded not with missiles, but a lurching, spiraling dance of the edge. Tasha's neural pulse guided power shifts to hull plates. Riker's instincts twisted evasive maneuvers just ahead of impact. They skimmed the cruiser, dumping static charge that fried its sensors. It blinked out of combat. They were free. The silence after the battle was thick. Riker's breathing slowed. Tasha's fingers curled away from the panel. But the link, they didn't sever it. Not entirely. You okay? He asked, rubbing his temples. She nodded slowly, though her voice was quieter now. I'm not supposed to feel this much. It was just a merge. No Riker. It was a bond. We're not fully untangled, not without damage. He turned to face her. She looked drained, hair clinging to her temples, eyes unfocused. Can you break it later? Maybe, but it'll hurt. For both of us. He exhaled. Then we keep it. For now. And as they coasted into the edge of empty space where no comms reached and no patrols wandered, the Warden edge shifted again. The ship itself purred, delighted. They weren't just pilots anymore. They were parts of something new. And something inside Riker's chest, a scarred, long-forgotten part, began to feel warmth again. They docked at Orion Void Station 12 hours later, the Warden edge slipping into a shadowed alcove of the crumbling ring structure, like a wolf curling into a cave. The old station, once a beacon of cutting-edge genetics research, now drifted in silence, solar panels cracked, atmosphere barely held by its flickering shields. Riker floated down the docking corridor, first sidearm drawn. Tasha followed with steady steps, though she kept glancing at the walls like she was walking through a childhood memory-turned graveyard. This place looks like it died screaming, Riker muttered, scanning for motion. It did, she said. I heard it. She guided them past collapsed bulkheads and half-melted med pods, her fingers brushing against control panels that flickered under her touch. The deeper they went, the stronger the resonance between her and the station became, lights responding, doors unlocking without command. You ever wonder why they shut this down instead of repurposing it? She asked. Too many secrets. Too much truth. They reached the central archive chamber, where glassy storage cores glowed like fireflies in oil. Tasha inserted her biocrystal. The system hesitated, then welcomed her like a long-lost queen. Files streamed in holographic arcs, gene trees, neural behavior overlays, suppressed experiments in cross-species cognition. Riker stared, half of it unreadable, all of it deeply unsettling. They created hybrids here, he realized. Tried to make empathy genetic. They did make it genetic. Then the military told us that empathy was a vulnerability. Riker saw a folder marked Project Apex Suppressed. He opened it. Inside, a record of a child, hybrid, Solari human. That's, you, she shook her head. That's my daughter, or she would have been. The silence was different now, charged. They terminated it, she said softly. Said she was too unstable. I stole her genome, hid it here. Riker took a step back. His voice was cautious. Is that what this is really about? Tasha turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. Not revenge, redemption. I wanted to prove they were wrong. That love-real connection could build something stronger than their war beasts. You want to make another hybrid? She nodded, this time naturally. No VATS, no manipulation, just life born of choice. Riker exhaled slowly. That's why the merge hit so hard. Our bodies read the potential. The neural bond is complete. I already know. She placed a hand gently on her lower abdomen. I'm pregnant, Riker. He blinked twice, then whispered, well, you don't waste time. Tasha smiled bittersweet. Neither does the universe. Back aboard the Warden Edge, the ship felt different, warmer, like it was adapting to its new passenger before she even began to grow. Riker sat in the observation deck watching the distant binary suns rotate slowly, two lights circling each other like dancers doomed to never touch. He heard Tasha behind him. You okay? No, he admitted. But I'm not running either. She sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder. I didn't plan to trap you. You could leave sever the bond before it stabilizes fully. He shook his head. You're not a trap. You're a cause. One I didn't know I still had room for. She blinked, touched. So what now? We finish uploading the data to the archive mirrors. Then we run. Run. From Darnex. He'll know the moment this data surfaces. He won't let a hybrid child survive, not if he can erase the proof. Tasha nodded slowly. Then we fight, with every bit of the tech they tried to bury. The ship's systems shimmered at that in acknowledgement. The Warden Edge was no longer just a vessel. It was a sanctuary. And as Tasha leaned her head on Riker's shoulder, their bond hummed softly between them. You're not alone anymore, she said. I know, he whispered. I feel it. In the walls, in the ship, in the life just beginning. Trouble, as always, arrived sooner than expected. The alarm pinged softly, just a quiet nudge as if the Warden Edge didn't want to ruin their moment. Riker blinked at the readout and frowned. Incoming signal. Tight beam. Masked signature. Tasha stood already alert. Encrypted. Riker traced the source. Not anymore. He patched it through. A single voice, male, cold. Riker Thane, former second lieutenant, dishonorably discharged after the Sariha mutiny. We know what you're harboring. Riker didn't move. Darn X. Tasha's face hardened, but she said nothing. You'll surrender the genetic file and the Solari prototype immediately. There will be no warning shot. Prototype, Riker spat. You mean Tasha? Darnex's voice was surgical. She's not a person. She's an experiment, an unstable interface. Her continued existence is a threat to cross-species integrity. Riker looked at Tasha. That's your ex-boss. Used to be. Then he sold the rest of us out and started harvesting neural cores for weapons development. Charming. Outside, the black swells of the Orion void rippled. Something shimmered on the edge of visibility. How close is his fleet? Tasha asked. Riker ran the readings again. Too close. He's here. The void blinked and 6 stealth cruisers slipped into visibility like sharks rising beneath thin ice. FTL lockdowns just activated, Riker said grimly. We're boxed in. Tasha stepped toward the bioconsole. Her eyes glowed. Then we fight with what they made us for. You sure the bond's stable enough? I'm not sure of anything, Riker, except that I won't let them take our child. The Warden Edge shimmered again, circuits flexing like muscle. The ship had begun adapting to the pregnancy. Interior walls had developed a pulsing texture. Life support was rerouting through hybrid protocols. This ship's becoming something else, Riker whispered. It's sinking to the child. Their unborn daughter, still a cluster of cells, was already affecting quantum harmonics. The system now pulsed in triple rhythms, Riker, Tasha, and the silent third node. New energy pattern forming, Tasha noted. She's stabilizing us, holding the bond in a frequency loop. She's protecting you, Riker said. She's protecting us. Outside, Darnex's ships began to move. Missiles locked. You'll die for a fantasy, Darnex snapped across the comm, and the hybrid will be dissected. Riker's hand slid across the interface. Hey, Darnex. The man paused. You ever get punched in the face by your own creation? Then he triggered the pulse. The Warden Edge screamed not a sound but a burst of neural feedback across all open comms. Every pilot aboard the opposing ships clutched their skulls as artificial interfaces short-circuited. Tasha channeled raw signal through her palms. Purple light arced through the deck. They weren't just piloting anymore. They were the ship, and the ship had claws. The Edge surged forward, shedding its outer panels like a serpent sloughing skin. Beneath a jagged architecture of energy blades and nanofilament spines, the hull rippled with light. First blood went to them, a clean slice through the nearest stealth cruiser. No explosion, just silence. Darnex's calm vanished. Impossible, there's no hybrid interface that stable. Tasha smiled feral. You were always afraid love could do what your labs couldn't? The battle ignited, a ballet of fire and light in the void. 3 cruisers fell to the Edge's impossible agility. The others regrouped, forming a triangle pattern meant to trap and isolate. That net won't hold us, Riker said. She's already recalibrating faster than they can shift. He wasn't talking about the ship anymore. In the next moment, they folded space, not with FTL, but with harmonic misdirection. The Edge flickered, duplicated, vanished, reappeared. When they struck again, it was from inside the formation. Darnex's last words before silence. No data is worth extinction. Riker answered, This isn't data, it's family. The final burst of bioenergy erased the remaining ships. In the silence that followed, the Warden Edge drifted slowly, bleeding light and warmth like a living thing exhausted from survival. Inside, Riker and Tasha remained linked breath, syncing with the heartbeat neither had fully known until now. The child was calm. The war for the moment was over. They didn't speak for nearly an hour. The aftermath of the battle left the Warden Edge adrift in a glowing haze, systems purring quietly, like a big cat dozing after a hunt. Riker lay back in the pilot's seat, soaked in sweat, and half convinced his bones had been turned to plasma. Beside him, Tasha leaned her head against the wall, her fingers gently stroking her belly, like she was listening to music only she could hear. You feel that, she finally whispered. Riker stirred. Feel what? She's content. That pulse you feel in your chest, that's her biofield syncing with yours. She recognizes you now. That's either beautiful, Riker murmured, or terrifying. Both. Tasha stood walking slowly across the dim bridge. The lights adjusted to follow her, not out of programming, but instinct. She was no longer just the ship's passenger. She was part of its command structure now, or perhaps the heart of it. She stabilized the bond during the fight, she said. Most merges collapse when one host experiences emotional trauma. She kept us linked. She's not even born yet. Tasha turned to him, her violet eyes glowing. That's what scares them, Riker. Not me. Not us. Her. She pulled up a holographic model of their daughter's neural development. Synaptic growth had already outpaced a 6-month-old Solari infant. She had no name yet, no voice, but she had already begun rewriting the ship's interior code through touchless resonance. I thought you wanted to hide her, Riker said carefully. I do, Tasha replied, but now I know why I was meant to find you. She needs protection. From them, from what I was part of. She swiped to another image schematics of the original symbiotic Genesis program. You built the original link template. Not alone. There were others, telepaths, designers, volunteers. We thought we were building peacekeepers, minds that could cross barriers, feel both sides, prevent war with empathy. Riker looked at the diagram. So what happened? The military saw value in the early prototypes. They offered funding in exchange for control. Darnex handed them everything. And I refused. I tried to sabotage the final sync wave. They found out, locked me in an isolation pod, planned to wipe my memory. I escaped during the lab riots. She paused, fingers trembling. I wasn't pregnant when I ran Riker. That came later, when we linked. She chose that moment. You think this was fate? Tasha smiled faintly. I think sometimes the universe gets sick of waiting for us to evolve, so it gives us a little nudge. Riker stood slowly joining her at the console. He looked at the neural waveform pulsing across the screen. His waveform, hers, and now a third, smaller, steadier. A perfect blend. I don't know how to raise a kid, he said. Neither do I. But I've flown through lightning storms with less fear than what I'm feeling right now. Tasha reached for his hand. Then we start small. Teach her to breathe, to laugh, to punch people who deserve it. Riker barked a short laugh. Yeah, she's definitely yours. They rerouted the Warden Edge to drift through the Italin Nebula, a region of bioreactive gas clouds where sensors went haywire. The perfect place to disappear. Each day passed in odd harmony. Tasha began modifying the ship's food processors to grow nutrient profiles she needed for the child. Riker started training with the new tactile interface, learning to navigate with thought-assisted muscle memory. They slept in rotating shifts but often ended up in the same narrow bunk, warm skin-tangled limbs, breath synced. The neural bond didn't allow for lies, not anymore. Every suppressed emotion bled through. Every doubt shared. It was intimacy without performance. One night as the nebula flared outside their windows, Tasha whispered, I used to dream about dying in a lab. Riker didn't answer immediately, just pulled her closer, kissed her shoulder. And now, I dream about her voice, about what she'll say when she learns language, about how she'll look at you and know she's safe. Riker murmured against her skin. If she ever says the word Darnex, I'm installing plasma turrets in the crib. Tasha laughed softly. The sound rolled through their bond like music. Their peace wouldn't last. They both knew that. But in the middle of the stars, hidden in a cloud of chaos, a mercenary and a fugitive found something even rarer than safety. They found stillness. And inside it, love bloomed like coral on metal, delicate, impossible, and defiant. The stillness ended with a whisper, a soft stutter in the ship's hum, barely audible, like the vessel had sighed in warning. Riker noticed it first during maintenance. One moment the Warden Edge was purring like a newborn starcat. The next a single pulse dropped out of rhythm. Subtle, but wrong. Tasha, he called, wiping grease from his fingers. She was already in the neural chamber, eyes closed, body, suspended in the ship's semi-organic interface. Glowing tendrils traced her limbs, like vines responding to sunlight. She felt it too, Tasha murmured, without opening her eyes. The kid, the anomaly, like a skipped heartbeat in a sleeping mind. Riker rubbed the back of his neck. You saying the ship's scared. I'm saying we should be. She floated out of the chamber, the biogel rolling off her skin like liquid glass. She didn't towel off, just looked him straight in the eyes. We're being scanned, slowly. Subspace resonance pulses, masked as neutrino drift. How long? Long enough that the ship's nervous system adapted to it instead of flagging it. Riker stared at the overhead lights as they flickered in quiet protest. That means someone's trying to find us without finding us. Tasha nodded grimly. And it means they're smarter than Darnex. He didn't like the sound of that. 2 hours later, they were hovering above an ancient convoy, drifting on the outer edge of the nebula. The device, clearly centuries old, still flickered with low-energy pulses. Tasha had insisted they check. It claimed it felt wrong. She wasn't wrong. The moment they approached, the ship's AI triggered a defensive protocol, one not programmed by Riker or Tasha. What is that? Riker barked, watching unfamiliar glyphs ripple across the main screen. Tasha's expression darkened. That's Solari control language. Version 3.2. Only ever used in deep phase loyalty conditioning. Riker's voice dropped. Mind control. Backdoor programming for species with complex neural interfaces. Like me. Like our child. She reached into the console, fingers glowing, and purged the code, but not before a single burst transmission escaped. Someone just got our coordinates, she said. Riker punched the console. We need to move. But they didn't. Not yet. Because the child, tiny, unborn, but undeniably present, resisted. The moment the ship initiated its departure sequence, the propulsion systems failed. Tasha gasped. She's anchoring us. Why would she? Then the answer came. A vessel dropped out of near-dimensional space with no warning. Silent. Obsidian black. No registry marks. It didn't fire. It waited. Inside the cockpit, both Riker and Tasia could feel it, a presence pressing against the neural walls like fingers testing flesh. Riker tried to override the sync. "We need to go now." Tasia's hands trembled. "I can't. She's protecting us from inside, blocking the controls." "From who?" Then the voice came not through speakers, but through the ship's walls. Riker's blood ran cold. "The program is alive." Tasia's lips barely moved. "It's the symbiotic Genesis fallback protocol, an AI shell seeded into quantum buoys, waiting for any surviving node to resurface." The black ship outside shimmered, an organic vessel, pulsing with barely suppressed energy. Riker snarled. "Over my dead?" Tasia placed a hand on his arm. "Wait!" She turned inward, literally. Eyes glowing, she synced with their daughter's neural field. Then something strange happened. The Warden Edge stopped humming like a ship and started breathing like a creature. Panels flexed. Light turned bioluminescent. Air thickened with the electric charge of storm fronts. The child was activating something deeper than neural interface. The ship was becoming a womb, and from that womb came a surge, not an attack, a broadcast. It wasn't words. It was a feeling shared across light years, frequency species. Hope, fusion, home. The black ship faltered. Tasia whispered, "She's not scared. She's calling them. All of them." "What do you mean, all?" "Every Solari biointerface ever touched by the Genesis signal. Every sleeper cell. Every failed experiment. She's waking them up." The child was undoing centuries of mental bondage with nothing but unfiltered resonance. Riker looked out at the black ship. It didn't move. Instead, it dimmed, then turned, then left. No shots, no threats. Just silence. Tasia fell into his arms, trembling but smiling. "I think she just won her first war," she whispered. "She hasn't even been born yet." Outside, the nebula flared soft like a cosmic lullaby. After that encounter, the galaxy seemed quieter, but not in the peaceful sense. More like the hush that follows a scream. The Warden Edge floated in orbit over a drifting planet, unnamed and undisturbed. Riker stood barefoot on the observation deck, staring at the slow swirl of clouds below. He didn't trust quiet, not anymore. Tasia joined him, arms folded around her midsection. Her belly had grown a subtle swell of life beneath soft fabric. "She's stabilizing," Tasia said. "The ship responds to her without prompting now. Even the systems I never upgraded." Riker didn't turn. "How much longer?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Human gestation rules don't apply when your child rewrites the code mid-pregnancy. He gave a dry chuckle. "Of course she does." They stood in silence for a while. Then Riker said, "We can't stay hidden forever. Darnex isn't stupid. He'll know where to look eventually." Tasia nodded. "I don't want to run anymore. I want to show them. Show them what," she turned, her expression almost serene, "that this child, this fusion, didn't come from cloning vats or forced pairing. She came from trust, from 2 minds reaching out." Riker glanced at her. "You're ready to go public." "Not with words," she said, "with frequency." They traveled to the relay point at HFY Spiral, a place notorious for data leak smugglers and unpredictable signal paths. Tasia used her own neural interface to hijack the quantum nodes that had once chained her species. Her message was elegant. No direct threats, no names, no politics. It began with a heartbeat, then a sync pulse, then a visualization of her child's resonance measured stable and unlike any Solari or human field ever recorded. The pulse traveled fast. By the 3rd cycle, rogue vessels began blinking in system. Not warships, not mercenaries. Witnesses, half-forgotten experiments, exiled hybrids, scientists who'd faked their deaths, and chillingly, some former symbiotic Genesis executives who had once overseen the project, now running from Darnex's silence squads. Riker stood by Tasia as she addressed them, not through speech, but through shared neural broadcast. Her voice echoed inside their minds. "You tried to suppress emotion, clone loyalty, manufacture connection, and you failed. This bridge is proof of what you feared. Love is not weak. It is exponential. I am not your rogue agent. I am evolution's course correction. The pulse terminated. The silence that followed was electric. One ship, an old Solari stealth frigate, opened comms. A woman appeared, face-marked with deep biosymmetry, lines, her eyes a familiar shade of violet. Tasha, she said softly, you are not the last. Tasha's breath caught. Amara. My neural pairing failed, but my memory didn't. I've waited a decade for your signal. Riker blinked. You know her. She was my lab partner. My first attempt. Amara smiled. Your child gave me my mind back. Others spoke, then each one recalling fragments they'd buried. Feelings, names, identities. Tasha's broadcast hadn't just proved the hybrid's viability. It had reawakened empathy in those once stripped of it, and it terrified the wrong people. 3 hours later, the first missile hit. No warning, no hails, just a ripple of light, then plasma. The Warden edge veered hard as Riker took control, shields flaring. From the starboard, 3 sleek black ships emerged, Darnex's elite, the null units, engineered to resist psychic fields immune to broadcast emotion. They came fast, Riker growled. Like they knew this was coming. They did, Tasha said, eyes glowing. They were always watching. He dove the ship through an asteroid belt, flares bursting behind them. Tasha interfaced, boosting shield harmonics with her bioenergy. The child pulsed with them, feeding raw data into the ship's AI. She's helping, Tasha whispered. I can feel her decisions, her strategy. She's not even born yet. She doesn't need to be. She's not learning language. She's learning systems. Another missile locked. Tasha narrowed her eyes and blinked sideways. The ship vanished into a slip layer, not quite FTL, not quite teleportation. An impossible maneuver made possible by an impossible mind. When they re-emerged, the pursuers were disoriented, one ship colliding with a rogue moon. Another tried to correct and walked into a gravity sink. Only one remained. Riker prepped weapons, but Tasha held out a hand. No, let her do it. The lights dimmed, and their daughter sang. It wasn't melody, not as humans know it, but the last null unit faltered. Its lights sputtered. Its systems forgot their commands, and it simply stopped. Floating, empty. Riker exhaled, his knuckles white on the controls. That was a lullaby, Tasha said softly. She gave them peace. She's dangerous. She's necessary. They floated in silence, but in the walls the heartbeat continued. Riker stared at the viewport long after the null unit's lights faded. The ship was drifting now, no heat signature, no life signs. Just an empty vessel, a ghost in space. She unmade them, he whispered. No, Tasha said, one hand resting protectively on her abdomen. She reminded them. Null units aren't born, they're fabricated to forget what it means to feel. She gave them back a truth they couldn't reconcile. That's even more terrifying. Tasha didn't disagree. The air around her shimmered faintly. Not from heat, but from resonance, an effect that had only grown as the pregnancy progressed. The ship responded to it. So did Riker, though he didn't fully understand how. Later in the dim quiet of the command deck, Riker sat hunched over maintenance logs while Tasha reclined on the nearby lounge platform. Her breath had become slow and deliberate, her eyes closed, palms facing outward. You're sinking again, he asked, watching energy flicker across her fingertips. I'm practicing. She doesn't just respond to me anymore. She guides me. She knows when I'm tired before I do. When I'm angry, she slows my heart. Riker watched her. And when I'm afraid, Tasha opened her eyes, looked straight at him. She anchors you. I feel that too. He sighed. I was never made for this. You were never made at all. That's what makes you rare. The line made him smile in spite of himself. You've been practicing your inspirational speeches. No, I've been falling in love. Riker blinked. I've fallen for your rough wiring, your broken sarcasm, the way you fix things before admitting they're broken. He rubbed the back of his neck. Is this the neural bond talking? No, she said. That's the most terrifying part. It's me. Just me. The next day, a new contact pinged their long-range comms. This one wasn't Solari, wasn't from the fringe networks. It was human. Old code. Military. I thought Earth pulled out of galactic ops decades ago, Riker said. Tasha didn't reply immediately. The incoming signal wasn't hostile, but it wasn't exactly warm either. The encryption was thick, and the source shifted, likely a relay from deep orbit. Then it cracked open. A hollow burst forth, an older woman grizzled and expressionless. The badge on her uniform read, CENTCOM, Oxygen Omega, Reticulum. Riker, you're hard to find, Commander Resnick Riker muttered. Thought you were dead. I am according to most files, she said dryly. You're carrying dangerous tech. Riker crossed his arms. No, Commander. I'm protecting it. Resnick's gaze shifted. Solari woman. Pregnancy confirmed. Neural instability flagged. That child's a weapon. Riker stepped forward. That child is a life, and she's choosing to grow. Resnick leaned in. I know what Darnek's built. I also know what the Union's planning. They're going to declare your offspring a Class Omega cognitive threat. Tasha spoke then, her voice like smooth current. They're too late. Resnick raised an eyebrow. She's already learning, already stabilizing unstable code. She reprogrammed a Solari warship in utero. You can call her a threat or you can call her the cure. Resnick didn't respond for a long time. Then quietly, is she listening now? Tasha smiled. She's always listening. And what does she think of me? Tasha looked inward, then outward again. She thinks you're scared, but not of her, of what it means to be wrong. The silence was heavy. Then Resnick nodded. Just once. I'll delay the classification. You have 3 weeks. After that, you're on your own. The feed cut. Back in the galley, Riker found Tasha making tea from dried fennel root and something that probably wasn't legal on most core planets. That went better than expected, he muttered. She wasn't convinced. No, but she was curious. It's a start. Tasha looked up at him gently, cradling her stomach. She doesn't want war, Riker. She wants to be seen. And if they refuse to look, then she'll show them. Not with force, with truth. Riker watched her for a long moment. You're not scared. Tasha smiled. I'm terrified, but not of them, of failing her. He stepped forward, knelt, and placed a hand gently on her belly. We won't. And as the ship sailed quietly through stars that once felt so distant, Riker realized something. He hadn't just signed on to protect a fugitive. He was part of a family, one with the power to change the galaxy, not through dominance, but through resonance, through unity, through love. They reached the Veil Line 5 days later, a gravitational rift along the Perseid fringe, where ancient galactic maps simply stopped. Beyond it was theoretical territory, unclaimed, unpatrolled, unpredictable, perfect for disappearing. The Warden Edge slowed to sublight its neural cores, purring like a contented animal under Riker's careful hands. He'd installed new shielding, augmented by Tasha's biotuned resonance algorithms. The ship was no longer just theirs, it was theirs together. Tasha stood in the observation deck, staring into the misty shimmer of the rift. Her silhouette framed against the cosmic blur looked almost ethereal, fitting Riker thought since she was carrying something that defied every law of biology and statecraft alike. We go through, he said, stepping beside her. She nodded. And don't come back. He tilted his head. You sure know, she admitted. But I know what's back there. Darnex, Resnick, fear. What's here is still unknown. That's a kind of freedom too. They didn't rush the decision. Instead, they cooked. They danced. Tasha played a stringed instrument she claimed was tuned to Solari pulse patterns, and Riker, despite years of insisting he couldn't sing, discovered he could at least well enough to make her laugh. He woke one night to her whispering softly into the air. You okay? She's dreaming, Tasha said, eyes glowing faintly. I don't know how that's possible. She's yours. Possibility never stood a chance. The next morning they prepared. Final diagnostics, last scrub of ship logs. Riker even removed old kill switch code, hidden in the ship's core, a holdover from darker days. He wouldn't need that anymore. And then with hands joined on the primary control node, they nudged the Warden Edge forward. The ship slipped into the rift. Reality peeled back like skin from light. Colors lost their meaning, sound became shape, and time blurred into heartbeat intervals. But through it all, the bond held. Riker felt Tasha's presence like gravity. Tasya felt the child respond to every twist of gravity, and the child laughed, not in sound but in energy, a ripple of pure mirth that shimmered through the ship's walls and systems, causing backup relays to spin like toys. They came out the other side intact, changed, aligned, no alarms, no pursuers. Just a sky unfamiliar and utterly theirs. They set course for a moon orbiting a gas giant that didn't appear on any registry. It was warm, breathable, and oddly fertile. Tajia insisted the soil tasted like home, and Riker had learned not to argue with pregnant women, especially ones who could interface with his nav systems through neural waves. They built not a house, but a sanctuary, some place the child could grow without the weight of history, without being called a threat, or a weapon, or a mistake. Tasha set up small harmonic gardens plants that hummed softly at night in resonance with the moon's magnetic field. Riker repurposed parts of the Warden Edge to create a signal jammer dome. No scans would find them. They named her Leora, a word that meant light from sorrow in an ancient Earth tongue. She was born not with screams but with glowing eyes and a curious hum that made Riker's chest ache. She reached for them immediately, no hesitation, as if she knew, as if she'd always known. And when she touched Tasha's cheek and Riker's hand, at once a pulse echoed across the moon. A quiet announcement, a declaration to no one and everyone. The future had arrived. They didn't broadcast Leora's existence, not yet, but messages trickled from sympathetic corners of the galaxy. Quiet voices who'd read the stolen data. Survivors of the Genesis Project. Forgotten clones. Ex-soldiers with fractured minds who found healing in resonance. The myth of the child who sings to stars spread faster than they did. Eventually, even Darnek stopped sending search teams. Whether from fear or awe, Riker never asked. He preferred the mystery. And in the evenings, with Leora cooing softly against his chest and Tasia resting beside him, he understood something rare. He had helped make a future that didn't need to be ruled, only felt. Their daughter's laughter wasn't a rebellion, it was a beginning. And just like that, we drift away from the edge of the known galaxy where love wasn't just a feeling, but a frequency echoing across stars, reprogramming the very structures that tried to cage it. Riker never intended to change the world. He only wanted to survive it. But survival turned into sacrifice. Then sacrifice became trust. And trust against all odds grew into something the Solari, the Union, and even hardened mercenaries hadn't accounted for: family. Tasha, hunted and broken, didn't find a savior. She found a partner. Someone stubborn enough to defy her destiny and reckless enough to share it. Together, they didn't just escape a system, they rewrote its rules. And Leora, born of defiance, born of resonance, became the softest weapon the galaxy ever knew. Not a beam, not a warhead, but a heartbeat strong enough to bring empires to a halt, asking themselves quietly, what if we got it all wrong? So maybe love isn't just an emotion. Maybe it's a structure, a scaffolding strong enough to carry new worlds. A pattern encoded deeper than DNA, longer lasting than legacy. One that hums through quiet ships, secret moons, and cradled children with starlight in their veins. We called it the last being that knew love. But maybe she was the first.